Picture this: a courtroom. The Bible is on trial. The prosecution stands up, confident, smug even. They've got their arguments ready. This book has been corrupted, translated and retranslated until the original message is lost. Monks changed it to fit their agenda. You can't trust a word of it. Case closed, right? Not so fast, because the defense just walked in with evidence. Physical evidence. Manuscripts. Thousands of them. Some dating back to within decades of when the original authors put pen to papyrus. And here's the kicker. The prosecution didn't see this coming. Neither did most people watching from the gallery, because for the last 100 years, we've been told the Bible is unreliable, that it's been altered beyond recognition, that comparing modern Bibles to the originals is like playing telephone for 2,000 years. But then, archaeologists started digging. And what they found didn't just challenge that narrative, it obliterated it. You won't believe what the evidence actually shows. Hit subscribe right now, because we're about to present the case that even the toughest critics can't refute. Real manuscripts, real dates, real science. Let's examine the evidence. 1947, middle of nowhere, Judean desert near the Dead Sea. A Bedouin kid is goofing around, tossing rocks into caves. One rock, different sound, not rock on rock, pottery shattering. He climbs in, finds these ancient clay jars, covered in dust, sealed for centuries. Inside, scrolls, leather scrolls, papyrus, written in ancient Hebrew. The kid has no idea what he's found. Sells them to a merchant in Bethlehem for pocket change. That merchant shows them to scholars, and the scholars lose their minds. Because these aren't just any scrolls. These are biblical texts, Old Testament books, dating back to between 250 BC and 100 AD. Here's why this matters. Before 1947, the oldest complete Hebrew Bible we had was from 900 AD. It was called the Masoretic text, copied by Jewish scribes who were absolutely meticulous about accuracy. But critics said, how can we trust copies made 1,000 years after the originals? Who knows what changed in that time? Fair question, right? 1,000 years is a long time. Then boom, Dead Sea Scrolls. Over 900 manuscripts discovered in 11 caves around Qumran. Every Old Testament book except Esther represented. And these scrolls were 1,000 years older than the Masoretic text. Finally, we could compare. See what changed over a millennium of copying by hand. No printing presses, no computers, just scribes and ink and parchment. So what did scholars find? The book of Isaiah, found at Qumran, copied around 125 BC, is virtually identical to the Masoretic text from 900 AD. We're talking 1,000 years later. Same text. William Albright, one of the 20th century's most respected biblical archaeologists, said the accuracy was unprecedented in ancient literature. The differences? Tiny. Spelling variations. A synonym here or there. But the content? The meaning? The message? Perfectly preserved. Jewish scribes took this so seriously, they developed elaborate verification systems. They counted every letter in every line, every word in every column. If they found one error, they destroyed the entire manuscript and started over. That's not corruption. That's the opposite of corruption. But wait, what about the New Testament? That's where it gets even more intense. Here's a number that will blow your mind. 5,700. That's how many Greek manuscripts of the New Testament we have. Not copies of copies of copies. Original Greek manuscripts. Some complete books, some fragments, but all telling the same preservation story. The earliest, Papyrus P52, contains parts of John's Gospel, found in Egypt, now sitting in the John Rylands Library in Manchester, England, and it's dated between 110 and 130 AD. That's 30 to 50 years after John wrote the original. 30 to 50 years. Think about that. Your grandparents remember things from 50 years ago clearly. In historical terms, that's yesterday, and the text of P52 matches what's in your Bible today, word for word. But there's more, way more. Papyrus P66 contains most of John's Gospel, dated to 200 AD. Papyrus P75 has Luke and John nearly complete, also 200 AD. Codex Vaticanus, housed in the Vatican Library, contains almost the entire Bible in Greek, 325 AD. Codex Sinaiticus, discovered at St. Catherine's Monastery on Mount Sinai, same era. Now let's play comparison. Plato's writings, we have 7 manuscripts. The earliest is from 1,000 years after he wrote. Homer's Iliad, considered the best preserved ancient work after the Bible, 643 manuscripts. Earliest is 400 years after the original. Julius Caesar wrote the Gallic Wars in 50 BC. We have 10 manuscripts. Earliest copy, 900 years later. Nobody questions whether those texts are authentic, but the Bible, with thousands of manuscripts and copies from extremely close to the originals, somehow gets labeled unreliable. F. Bruce, professor at the University of Manchester, wrote, "There is no body of ancient literature in the world which enjoys such a wealth of textual attestation as the New Testament." Want to know what's really wild? We have so many manuscripts that we can actually cross-check them against each other, verify accuracy, spot any variations. That level of verification doesn't exist for any other ancient document, not even close. But hold on, what about all those variations between manuscripts everyone talks about? If this is already blowing your mind, smash that like button and drop a comment with your thoughts right now. Yes, there are variations between manuscripts, about 400,000 of them. Sounds bad, right? Sounds like the prosecution just scored a point? Here's what they don't tell you. First, the more manuscripts you have, the more variations you'll find. It's basic math. Compare 2 manuscripts, you'll find few differences. Compare 5,000, you'll naturally find more. It's not a bug. It's actually proof of how much evidence we have. Second, the vast majority of these variations are completely meaningless. We're talking spelling differences, word order, synonyms, things that change absolutely nothing about meaning. Example, Jesus Christ versus Christ Jesus. Technically, a variation. Does it change anything? 0. Third, of the less than 1% of variations that are significant, none affect any fundamental Christian doctrine. Not one. And here's the kicker. Even Bart Ehrman admits this. Ehrman is a skeptic, a critic of the Bible, agnostic, and even he wrote that textual variations don't change any essential Christian belief. Daniel Wallace, director of the Center for the Study of New Testament Manuscripts, analyzed every available manuscript. His conclusion? We're 99% certain of the original text, and that remaining 1% doesn't affect any important doctrine. Let's talk about the famous variations. The woman caught in adultery, John chapter 8, doesn't appear in the earliest manuscripts. Scholars agree it was probably added later. But does this change Christian theology? Nope, because Jesus, forgiving sinners and defending the oppressed, appears in dozens of other passages. The ending of Mark, verses 9 through 20 of chapter 16. Also, not in the earliest manuscripts. Modern academic Bibles note this in footnotes. Total transparency. And here's something fascinating. These supposed alterations critics talk about actually prove the honesty of the process. If the church wanted to hide things, they would have destroyed the old manuscripts. They would have forced one single text. But that's not what happened. Every manuscript was preserved, every variation documented. Scholars from all backgrounds have complete access. That's the opposite of a conspiracy. That's radical transparency. And there's a question nobody asks but should. Why would God allow textual variations at all? Think about it. If God wanted every single word preserved with absolute perfection, couldn't He have done that? Of course, he could have carved the Bible into indestructible stone, could have made Bibles rain from heaven every generation. But that's not how he chose to do it. He used people, human scribes who got tired, who occasionally missed a letter, who lived in different eras, different places. And yet, through thousands of years and thousands of copies, the text was preserved with accuracy that shocks experts. That's not weakness. That's evidence God works through human history, not despite it. Here's something that should make you stop and think. The harshest critics of the Bible, the most skeptical scholars, spend their entire lives studying every comma, every variation, every scrap of papyrus. And you know what most of them conclude? That the biblical text is the best preserved of all ancient literature, bar none. Bruce Metzger, professor at Princeton and one of the world's top authorities on textual criticism, said, "The amount of New Testament manuscripts is so large that it is virtually certain that the true reading of every doubtful passage has been preserved in at least one of the ancient witnesses." Translation: even with variations, we can reconstruct the original text with extraordinary certainty. Compare this to the Quran. Muslims claim it was perfectly preserved, but historical truth is different. Caliph Uthman, in 650 AD, ordered all variant Qurans burned. Only one version survived. There's no way to verify if it was original. The Bible is the opposite. All versions were preserved. We can compare. We can verify. That's academic transparency. Want to know the real reason this matters? Because if this book survived persecutions, empires trying to destroy it, centuries of hand copying, maybe it's because the message inside actually matters. Subscribe and hit that bell, because next video we're revealing archaeological discoveries that confirm specific biblical events critics said were myths. You don't want to miss it. So, was the Bible changed over time? The archaeological evidence screams the answer: no. The text you read today is essentially the same text the first Christians read. The small variations that exist don't affect any important doctrine, and we have more evidence for biblical reliability than for any other ancient book. But ultimately, this isn't just about ancient history, it's about today, about you. Because if this book was preserved through persecutions, through empires that tried to destroy it, through centuries of manuscript copying, maybe it's because the message inside really matters. Maybe God guarded these words because they're for you. Archaeology can prove textual reliability, but only you can discover the transformation it offers. Scholars can debate textual variations, but only you can experience the encounter with the author behind the words. Today, you saw the evidence. Now, I'm inviting you to meet the person, not through pressure, not through fear, but because a book that survived all this deserves at least to be read with an open heart. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Share this with someone who needs to see it. And I'll see you in the next video, where archaeology keeps revealing truths that change everything.